Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome back to Tachy Talks. We've got a very exciting episode today. You can see that we have a guest with us. This is our classmate in the year above us, Ilinca, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey to med school. But before we jump into that, I'll introduce you to my pals. Pals?
Hello, everyone. My name's Advait. I am Hailey's pal.
And I'm Kylie. And this is one of my best pals,
Ilinca.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Woohoo!
Hello, Ilinca.
I'm so
Thanks
excited
for joining us today. Yes, we are very excited. But as is tradition, we got to tell everybody about what we did this week. So, Advait, what'd you get up to this week?
What did I get up to this week? You know what? I've been just busy actually studying for the first time in second year med school. I'm actually studying.
No, we need to talk about this because Advait in small groups recently has been so on fire. Like, I'll message him on the side and be like, wow, you're so smart. And then I was like, wait a second, he's not watching the lectures. How is he this smart? And it's been all the Yankee. And then so I messaged him.
Yeah, actually,
watched.
We have like a class-wide group chat, and Advait asked a very detailed question in an endocrinology small group and got his nickname in the group chat changed to Advait bracket endo gunner. And so now everybody thinks he's an endo gunner. I don't think he's interested in endo at all. But
no, endo.
No,
okay.
I thought he was. He is.
Are you?
Sorry,
I'm like slightly interested in it. Like, I think it's one of the more interesting topics we've discussed. Like, I think endo is more interesting than OB-GYN or like.
Oh,
that's good because I find it
Ilinca, what do you think about that one?
No.
Inspired from Advait. I'm happy with that statement.
Why, Ilinca? Do you want to do OB-GYN?
I don't agree. Yeah, I do.
Oh no.
That's gonna come up later.
That little spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
A little spoiler alert. But like, honestly, I've just been busy like studying. But there was an Indian holiday which happened. It's called Diwali. Maybe you know about it. So that was really nice. Got to eat some really good food with the fam. Spend some time together. Other than that, nothing really too much. How about you, Kylie? What's going on?
Honestly, I've been so stressed out this week. There's been so much stuff going on. Like, obviously, I feel like we've talked about this every week for the past few weeks. Just like with the block we're in is really heavy. There's been a lot of extracurricular stuff going on. I didn't really sleep a few days ago, so I'm paying for that. I woke up at noon today, and I hate when I do that because when I wake up at noon, my whole day's gone. But I don't know. It hasn't been a super fun week. It's been, well, the weather was really beautiful. And I went for a few runs, but that was it. Hailey?
Yeah, I mean, I got bangs, so that's how my week is going. How about you, Ilinca?
That sums it up.
Well, I finished my first week in the CCU, and that was fun. It was much more relaxing than being in CTU before that. And do I have to like define these acronyms, or do you think your viewers would know?
I mean, yeah, you can define them. Let's just, I think we have some high school viewers.
We have some high school viewers,
Yeah.
All right. Well, the CCU would be like the cardiac care intensive care unit, and then the CTU would be kind of the internal medicine unit, but specific for teaching.
I have a funny story about
inpatient internal medicine. Yeah.
Last year when I was on my first observership in the Emerge, there was a code up in the CCU. And then afterwards, I was like, I know this is a really stupid question, but can you tell me what CCU stands for? And I'm sure you all know which doctor I was with. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah.
That's my absolute favorite is when you ask him a question, he goes, are you serious? And you have to look at him and be like, indeed, I am quite serious.
Do I know this teacher? Is he like
He's the ER guy.
Okay.
But yeah, that was funny. But I guess for anyone who doesn't know, Ilinca's in her third year, which means she's in clerkship. So her whole year is in the hospital and she's doing like clinical rotations. So she is in internal medicine right now and she's doing cardiology, which has been very exciting apparently.
Here's the thing.
I mean,
my biggest fear, do you need to know how to read an EKG in cardiology? Because I can't do it.
I now read like 70 EKGs a day.
Wow.
Wow.
But let me tell you, it's been like a steep learning curve from the first day of this week. Like I didn't really remember a lot from undergrad or from the first 2 years of medical school, to
It
be
pretty
honest.
much is
But,
undergrad, eh?
well, yeah, it feels like I always say undergrad and people are like, do you mean like, you know, like undergrad? I'm like, no, that's how I refer to the first 2 years of med school. But yeah, I didn't remember a lot. Like I knew like the normal things like tachycardia, bradycardia, all that. But like now I can read one pretty well. So, you know, you just
Is
learn as
this
you
after,
go.
like, 1
That's
week?
literally clerkship.
Is this after 1 week in cardiology?
Yeah. And I
Or-
feel like
Damn.
pretty much of a pro. I mean, I don't want any of the cardiac physicians to listen to this podcast, but I feel like I'm doing pretty well.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of like when you're learning a new language and then somebody says the best way to learn is like go to that country and speak it. I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
that's what
immerse
clerkship
yourself
is.
in it.
Yeah.
Those squiggles make sense to me now.
Now I'm writing down do cardiology selective in internal next year because I suck at EKGs at the moment.
The other day, Kylie and I were trying to point out a STEMI on an EKG that
Yeah.
didn't have a STEMI. It was the wrong patient. And we were like trying to explain it to a first year, like, oh yeah, it's here. No, it's over here. And then we were like, no, it's not. It's not here because there's no STEMI on this EKG.
Yeah, that was not one of my brightest moments. You and I were like, yeah, it's definitely this.
It's this right here.
You know, fake it till you make it.
Fake it till
Yeah,
you
you
make it.
really
really.
do have to. Also, in other controversial news, I put up my Christmas tree.
Hey,
that's
congrats.
I don't think that's
I
Dr.
love that
Creek.
for you. Find joy.
Thank
It's
you.
after Remembrance
Find
Day.
joy in 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my parents
This is
really
the earliest
like,
I've ever put it up though, so because of 2020.
but you need the joy. Like my parents, they always buy like a real Christmas tree, so they always make us wait a little bit closer to Christmas, or else it'll die. But I told my mom, I was like, we are putting up the Christmas decorations because we need joy.
Maybe I need some Christmas decorations for my apartment.
I think you do.
Okay, I'll go get some.
That was
That's
easy.
settled.
So maybe I should do this. Yeah, you should. Okay.
Sometimes that's
Twist
all
my
you
rubber
need.
arm.
Sometimes you have a plan set in your mind and you just need somebody to tell you that it's okay. And then you can go ahead. When you're like, you ever text somebody and you're like, man, I really want sushi tonight. And they're like, you should order sushi. And you're like, ha, what a great idea. Ordered.
You just want to feel good
I'm-
about like spending money. That's the thing.
Yep. I'm the worst enabler. Whenever someone's like, should I buy this? I go, yep, you should.
Yep. Should I buy
I
you a
love
Ferrari? Yep. Go for it.
Or like, oh
I
man, I
mean-
really love some ice cream right now. Let's go get some ice cream. I think you've done that for me, Kylie. Really great.
Yep.
All right. Well, that has
Without
been our
further
weeks.
ado, let's talk about Ilinca. So Ilinca,
Wait.
Oh yes,
There's a
I forgot the most
disclaimer
important
that
part.
needs to
There's a
happen.
disclaimer.
Idiot.
So, as per usual, oh my god, I'm already tripping over my words. Everything we say today is our views and our views alone. They do not reflect the views of the institution we attend. Any advice we give you is merely based on our own personal experiences or Ilinca's personal experiences, and it does not guarantee you a way into medical school. We're just telling you about ourselves. So with that, let's get into our first question for Ilinca. And, you know, this is a pretty standard question. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to medicine?
My journey to medicine. When I was like reading these questions, it just felt like a medical school interview all over again. But so my journey, so I did 4 years of undergrad at Queen's University in biochemistry. And then I guess around that time, a lot of my friends were applying to medical school. And I don't know, I think either I wasn't ready or I was just scared I wouldn't get in. So I didn't apply, watched them all get in. And then I decided to do a master's and did that for 2 years. And that was also at Queen's. And I did it in pathology and molecular medicine. And then just because I hadn't had enough of Kingston and I wanted to stick around, I started my job hunt after my master's. And I worked as a barista for 6 months. So don't think it's all science. And then I found a job at Kingston General Hospital. They were looking for a research coordinator in their intensive care unit. And so I applied for that. And then I did that for 2.5 years. And then that's kind of when I got the like behind the scenes of medicine. Thought, you know what, like I love science. I want a career in science, but I also really just enjoyed the hospital atmosphere, and I really kind of got a sense for what the job was really like that I think a lot of people applying out of undergrad wouldn't have. And then I decided I was going to apply to medical school. And then I did, and then I got in. And then here I am 3 years or 2.5 years later, I guess, after applying, and enjoying myself, although it's challenging all the time. There's ups and downs. But yeah, that's my windy journey to medical school.
So you didn't apply to medical school like at all in your undergrad or master's?
No, it was always at the back of my mind, and I just kept putting it off. I think part of that was just a little bit of just like self-doubt that like maybe I wouldn't get in. Like the more time went on, I was just like, it's starting to be like a really big commitment. Like the farther and farther I got out of undergrad, I was like, man, I'm just gonna have to like go back to school again after having like a job for a few years, and that's going to be a complete change of pace. So it just I kind of put it off, and I was enjoying what I was doing, and then eventually I was just like, you know what, I would just look, if in 20 years I looked back and I didn't apply and I'd been thinking about it this whole time, I would just like kick myself. So that's when I kicked it into gear, wrote my MCAT, and then applied. So yeah, I feel like that might be a misconception, especially since I'm a little bit older, that I applied a few times, but luckily I only applied the one time, and fate worked out for me.
Woohoo!
It is. I feel like applications it is a lot of fate and luck, and
oh yeah, for sure.
Pixie dust. Faith, trust, and pixie dust.
Yeah.
Well, so the next question, kind of like a little bit on that line. When did you find out that you want to go into medicine? Like, was there a specific point? Like you said, it's always been at the back of your mind, but was there one situation or one job that you had when you were like, I want to do this?
Like I mentioned earlier, it would probably have to be when I was the research coordinator in the ICU. I just got, just to kind of, I guess, explain a bit about the role, it was essentially, we as research coordinators would facilitate clinical trials for either pharmaceutical companies or other docs that just had an idea for research that they wanted conducted, but like in an inpatient population. So my job was literally to do like the ethics applications, to recruit patients into the studies, to make sure that everything was being administered correctly, look at adverse events, see if the drugs or whatever intervention was actually working, document that, and kind of just see that whole process through. And just like a bunch of logistics, like how to implement certain studies, communicating with like nurses and the healthcare team. So I got kind of, because like I wasn't, like my master's had been very just like bench work, like molecular science. So I hadn't really had any insight into like what the clinical medicine would be like. So that was the first time I really got to experience that side of it. And I feel like I just got to experience every aspect of it, because depending on the study, like, like I'd be talking to family members. If the patients like were intubated, I was talking to all kinds of different doctors, because in the ICU, you have to have like a subspecialty before you get to the ICU. So there were like respirologists, emerge docs, anesthesiologists, just like the whole gamut. So I just got to talk to a lot of different people and really see like probably the most intense part of medicine, because the sickest of the sick go to the ICU. So I think that's just when it just like clicked for me. It was just, these are all the things that I want. Like I like people, I like that part of the interaction, and I still want to do something with all the education I've accumulated over these past years. So it kind of just seemed like a natural progression. Yeah.
That makes sense, because you do very much like people.
I do. That's why I did my little brief barista stint. I really enjoyed that. I would recommend it. It was just a nice break between degrees.
I mean, the more I think about it, I couldn't see you just doing research every day. I think that you need to talk to people. So that would not have worked out well.
We did have some viewers wondering, though, just to kind of stay on the topic of this very interesting job of how did you secure or find that IC research coordinator position? So how did it kind of come to you, and how were you a good candidate for it?
Oh my God. I tell everyone about this job because I really loved it. And anyone that comes to me that just feels like a little bit lost after undergrad, I always recommend this. Because I feel like it just sets you up really well. But essentially, so as I mentioned, I just really wanted to stay in Kingston. So I was just kind of like scouring the like career boards, all the job postings. And most universities, especially if they're like a research hospital, so like most large universities, will have like external and internal job postings. And obviously I couldn't apply for the internal ones, but if you have another position, you could always apply internally. But they had external positions, and that's where they usually post these kind of research coordinating positions. And they're not just in the intensive care unit, like they could be in anesthesia, they could be emerge, like each big department will usually have some sort of research team. And so I literally just applied, and I was lucky enough to get an interview. I'll talk a little bit. I think one of the reasons I got the interview is because I had my master's. But I have a hot take on whether or not you should do a master's after undergrad. But I think having the master's helped me get the job that eventually helped me get to medical school. So that's something to consider. But I always tell people, even if you're coming just out of undergrad, it's worth a shot. Just like apply for these positions, because there's not a lot of room to like move up in these positions, but they're great positions to just have for a few years to get kind of a background in something, and then use that as a stepping stone to something else. So yeah, just go on university job posting boards and you'll find them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like a lot of
That's
universities.
a really good tip.
Yeah, a lot of universities have like those job postings. They might not even be science. It might just be like teaching English in China or something. Probably not going to happen right now because of COVID. But you know, if you're looking for something to do after undergrad, I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea those existed. I was like scouring Indeed. So I had no idea. Like I used Indeed. I didn't use the university ones.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. That's why I make sure to tell people, because anytime they hear about it, they were like, oh, that's so like unique. And like, I've never heard of it before. But when you know where to look, they're everywhere, like at every school.
Mm-hmm.
And they come with great benefits, because working for a university, just you get all the good benefits. So there's like 2 reasons to apply.
You know, kind of along that line, because I know that there's a master's question in here, so we could talk about. You said you have a hot take. Do you think your master's help prepare you for medicine? Tell us this hot take.
I want to know this hot take.
This is a bit controversial. I have a controversial stance on postgraduate education that's not professional degrees. I did my master's because I didn't know what else to do. And I don't think my heart and soul was in my master's. Like I never went into it being like, oh, like I just like love research so much. I really want to be a professor when I'm older. I want to go into like big pharmaceutical stuff. Like that was never the plan. It was kind of just to buy myself time. And I think if you're going in there just to like be there and get out, like I think when people ask like, should I do a master's to get into medical school? My opinion is no, because it's a grueling process. It can be very isolating and alienating, because you're like in university, but like not in undergrad, if that makes sense. Like it's still a job, but it's also an education at the same time. Like it's a very interesting line to walk. So I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, like you genuinely enjoy the research, then I agree with doing a master's, but I would never recommend anyone do a PhD or a master's just to get into medical school. And I think the master's, like I said, led me to the job that I think is the reason that I got in, or one of the reasons that I got in. But just doing a master's in isolation, I don't think that is the reason that I got into medical school. Because to be honest, I didn't actually bring it up in my interview. It never came up.
Interesting.
Like I talked so much more about like my job experiences than I ever did about like the research I did during my master's. but on the flip side of that, anything you do after undergrad, as long as you're creating experiences for yourself, then I think that that's something you can bring to the table in a med school interview. It's just like, make sure you genuinely enjoy the experience, because I mean, you may tell, but I didn't genuinely enjoy my master's all that much. There were parts of it I really liked, but I had a pretty, like a tough time kind of navigating my master's. And so it was not something that I like wanted to talk passionately about in my med school interview. I chose to talk about other things. So I think as long as you have those things, it doesn't really matter what you do, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was just like a windy way, but
very interesting, because we always talk on here about how, like, for extracurriculars in undergrad, you need to choose things that you're passionate about. You need to be able to talk passionately about it, but we've never really extended that beyond undergrad. And it's so true. You want to be able to talk passionately about your experiences. That's what they want to hear in the interviews. So I think I think that's a good hot take. I like it.
Thank you.
I agree
I'm
wholeheartedly.
Sure other people don't agree with me, but that's just what I think. Thanks,
Okay.
Kylie.
Here, I have a question. I have a question. Hold up. So you might not know the answer to this, but it's fine. Like, I'm just gonna ask it. Do you feel the same way about course-based masters?
I was thinking this too.
So I don't know a lot about course-based masters. I do. So as I said, my caveat to a master's was professional degrees, I think are, like if you're doing like an MBA, I think that just because it comes with a lot more like world experience, because I feel like they do like a lot of co-op stuff. I'm not really sure. Don't like quote me on this, but stuff that has like a component where you actually go out into like into either the community or some sort of like real world setting, I think are more valuable. So I had a lot of friends who did like public health degrees, and I think those are super valuable just because they do have that like additional component. I just mean like pure science degrees is kind of where I would draw the line. But I guess those are course-based masters, right? The MBA and the MPH.
Yeah.
MPH is for sure.
Yeah. So I actually think those could be very valuable just for what I would look for in a degree looking back now, and then just maybe even as someone that like in the future is going to judge applications. I just feel like just because I know a little bit about what goes on, and I think there's just a lot more experiences that you can build off of in those.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
Makes sense too. Like having those courses that provide you with something that will help you for medicine. And I'm sure that you still took some stuff out of your MSc. And like I agree. I know Advait and Hailey, you guys went straight into med school, but to give Ilinca like an N=2 point. The same thing for me. Like there's so many extracurriculars I did in undergrad that like never came up in my interview because I was so busy talking about like my job that I had between undergrad and med school. And I still talk about it all the time. Like it'll come up in our small groups. I still talk to them all the time. Like they're like my family almost. So I agree. I don't know. There's a lot of great things you can take out of a really good job experience between undergrad and med school.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing what Ilinca said was like, do something that you're going to enjoy, right? Whether that be a job that you enjoy, or if you really enjoy research and want to get into med school, like go for the regular masters, I think, if you really do enjoy the research, because you're still going to get experiences, maybe some publications that can help you during residency applications or whatever, but just whatever you enjoy. I think that's the best thing.
Whatever you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know it sounds corny and everyone says it, but it is true.
It is true, yeah.
And I mean, I guess looking at it from another sense, masters, like pure science masters do have like a head up over course-based just because you get paid. So I think that can also be a draw too, because, you know, the course-based ones are kind of expensive. So, you know, there's like pros and cons to both. I just, in my personal experience, I just don't know but you never know, you know? They could have looked at that master's and that's the reason I got like the interview. But to me, it just didn't seem like a big talking point when I was like talking about my life.
Well, and if you're on the fence between like doing a master's and working, there's so many opportunities in med school where you can get your master's if that's something that you decide that you really need to help your career. Like there's some med school programs that have masters incorporated into them now, as well as PhDs. And then there's also ways in your residency to get your master's. So if you're on the fence right now and you're sitting in undergrad trying to decide what you're going to do, if you don't get into med school, there's a lot more opportunities than just that master's. And if you do need it, then there's always ways to get it as well. It's my piece of information.
Thank you.
There's my hot take. You're welcome.
Move on to another question. So, we had a question. Did you consider doing another career besides medicine?
Yes. I did consider getting a law degree for a period of time. So much
Whoa,
so that
Wow.
I
This
can't
is mind-blowing
tell if it's all
information
for
to
the
me.
camera or not.
I'm
yeah,
shocked.
so I had booked my LSAT for right after I was gonna find out if I got into med school, just because I was like, I just needed to have something that I knew I was working towards afterwards. But then I canceled it as soon as I found out I got in. But yeah, I did consider law. I considered speech language pathology, but I never really seriously considered them. Let's just say that. They were just kind of, I did a few, I guess like little observerships with a speech language pathologist, and that just didn't seem like my cup of tea. And then law just felt like something that I would enjoy just because I liked writing and I like formulating arguments and stuff like that. I would have been such a nuisance if I was a lawyer, though. I would have. It's probably for the best that I'm not a lawyer. I would have been a good and a bad one at the same time.
So did you study for your LSAT? Like, were you in the process of studying for it?
I had started. I was in the process of studying in the month before I found out about med school. Yeah.
Was
That's
that your
actually-
like
that's
stress
so wild.
activity?
Pardon? My extracurricular activity was studying for law school.
Can you imagine at the interview they ask like, "Oh, what do you like to do on your free time?" Well, I just study for the LSAT.
I like to study for the LSAT.
I just love a good backup plan.
Something like a good plan B, am I right?
I don't know if it was a good backup plan though, because it's like equally as hard to get into. So I don't know. And I feel boring because it's like those are the jobs you always hear about, like doctor, lawyer.
Yeah. Engineer, that's what you're missing.
Engineer, like you just,
Yeah.
If I was more creative, I would have come up with another job to pursue. But
But you can make all those careers very interesting.
Yeah, you can. And there can be medical components to the law degree as well. So like that's kind of where that would probably have led me. So that was, healthcare was always at the back of my mind.
I find it interesting that those are all very like social careers too.
Yeah.
Like you're saying.
She said she likes people.
Yeah,
She's not
exactly. That really
She
shows.
wasn't lying.
She wasn't lying.
Your career choices. We have a classmate who always talks about what his alternate careers would be, how he'd be a pilot in another life and a teacher in yet another life. And I just think it's funny to hear what people would be if they weren't where they are now, because it's always very interesting.
Yeah.
Advait would be an engineer.
That would be
I
an
already know
engineer.
that one.
Easy.
Yeah.
I hope in another life that I'm a lawyer. It would be great.
I don't know. That you could definitely, I could see you being very good at that though, because you're very good at talking, and I could see you formulating those arguments very well. So
Yeah.
you do think of all the points.
I don't know if I would have been like a barrister though. Like I don't know if I would have been like an in-court person, but I would have definitely been like behind the scenes, like writing up the cases. That would have brought me joy.
I cannot imagine being a lawyer. I
agree,
hate
but-
writing so much. I hate the
I
English
love it.
language. I don't know.
I considered it very briefly when I was going to do an English minor with my degree. And then I took like 2 English classes and I was like, get me out of here.
It's like every science student.
Yeah. You know, it's not very uncommon though. This Ilinca, you're the second or third person I've heard of now who's like considered like doing their JD with, not with their MD, but as their backup. So
Yeah, somebody from our
happens.
class also was gonna do that, but then she got in. So
Yeah.
I guess
There's like a program, I think, at Toronto that lets you do a law degree and a med degree kind of simultaneously. I
That's
could be
crazy.
making that up. Before you release this, please confirm.
But
All right, we'll check.
Toronto has a ton of combined degrees, just because I know there's
Yeah.
like the PharmD MBA. They have like a whole, I've been looking at them, not
Yeah.
for me. I'm set in stone with where I am, but I've been looking at them for Nick, and there's been like a whole list of them with all the different things you can combine. So if that's something you're interested in, that's a really good thing to check out as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, coming to med school, I realized that there's a lot of people that like always knew they wanted to be a doctor. And I think I represent the other small set of the population that kind of just like fell into it, for lack of a better term. Like I found my way to it, but I never, like, I didn't come out of the womb being like, I want to be a doctor. But I know a lot of people that are, and they stuck to that goal and they got in, which is like exceptional, because I love people that just like know what they want right away. I always felt a little bit lost, and like I had to find my way to where I was going. So I think those are the people that are rarely talked about. It's the people that just kind of like take a different path to where they're going.
I think it's really good, because I think it can be very intimidating for people who kind of like they realize like, oh wait, I want to go to medical school, and then they look and there are all these vicious pre-meds ready to go with like pages of CVs, and like they've known they wanted to do it since they were born. And I think that can be like very intimidating, because you like, I mean, I didn't experience it, but I've heard that you get like the feeling that you're behind almost, so you need to catch up now because everybody's already written their MCAT or whatever. So I think it's nice for people to hear that like you can go into med whenever you realize you want to go into med.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, kind of along with that too. I was just going to say, Ilinca, I know you said you have a lot of friends who got into medical school after your undergrad. Did you find that their like presence or their career ever influenced you in deciding you wanted to go into med?
I mean, it is great to be able to talk about what you do with everyone you know and have them understand. Like, that's a perk. I also, like, to be fair, like, in addition to that research coordinator job, I think watching my friends go through medical school gave me a good understanding of what it's like from the student perspective. So like I watched them go through clerkship, I watched them do electives. Like, I guess I never said how old I am, but I'm 29 right now. So my friends are all now residents. So I watched them do like the CARBS process. I've like seen them go through their first 2 years of residency. And it's been great because, I mean, seeing them now when I complain, like they can give me like a lot of feedback, or they can be like, I know exactly what you were going through. So I'm sure they did influence me. You're always like who you hang out with, or like who you keep around or choose to be with. So there's no doubt in my mind that they influenced me. I don't know how much, but yeah.
Yeah, some really good friends. Whenever I talk to like people that I know that are in residency, they legit tell me, why are you studying in your second year? It doesn't matter. And I'm like, what?
Well, Advait, you are who you hang out with.
That's so true.
There you go.
That's an accurate reflection of who you are.
That's so true. They're straight up like, why are you studying? Like, it's just second year. It doesn't matter.
I've had someone tell me that recently too. And then I still continue to try to study. So, you know, what can you do? It was a doctor who told me that one.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Going back to what you said, Kylie, I think that or maybe it was Hailey, that feeling of like always being a step behind. I felt that in undergrad a lot, because I feel like that was very just like competitive and everyone wanted to get into med school. But I found the more I distanced myself from that, the easier it was to almost apply, because it just felt like it was just me applying. Because not to say like it was because like I didn't see the competition out there. Like I was always aware that there was like, you know what, like 5,000 other people that were applying, but it was just easier to distance yourself from that like competitive, just inherent competitiveness that undergrad breeds. And then just like, I knew I was doing it because I wanted to. Whereas like, I feel like it's easy in undergrad to get kind of like, just like follow the pack and be like, well, everyone else is applying, so I should too. So it was nice to not have that pressure.
For sure.
So like, I feel like anyone can kind of like answer to this, but do you still feel that competition now that like we're coming back up to the next application process and going into CARMs? Like, are you using those same things, like trying to distance yourself from it?
I don't feel the same pressure. It could be because no one in my class wants obstetrics and gynecology. But to be fair, everyone I realized is just like so unique, and the experiences you bring are just so unique. And as long as you can talk about them, like there's no point in competing with someone else, because even if you had the same things that they had, you would view them completely differently, and you would probably talk about them completely differently. So I don't know. It's also like we have 30 people in our class, like or like 35. So it's just like a smaller class size. Like there's just too much camaraderie for there to be competition. Like maybe in bigger classes there might be, because you don't know everyone. Am I allowed to say where our campus is and everything? Like,
yeah, everyone knows.
Oh, okay.
At this point.
Yeah.
So I know these lovely people because I'm also at the Windsor campus. And it's, it's a small class, so we just like all know each other. It's so much easier to help each other out than it is to tear each other down. Like it takes so much less energy, and you just feel better about yourself. And to be fair, like you can bring that up in interviews too. You can bring up how like you help people, or like you both worked on something that would benefit both of you. So no. But I mean, sometimes you do feel like when you hear someone doing a research project, you're like, darn, should I be doing one? Like that still happens. Even though like I've done research in second year and I feel good about it. And I'm like, I feel like I've checked that off on the list of like things I need for CARMs. Anytime I hear about someone else publishing, I'm like, should I like try to do something else? But then you have to remember, like I said, do it because you want to, not because you feel like you have to. That's just, in my 29 years of being on this earth, that's what I've realized is the best way to go through life. Do it because you want to, not because you have to, or because someone else is telling you. Even though that's hard sometimes to not do what other people are telling you, but
That's very good advice. And I think a lot of will resonate with that, because obviously like where we have like that whole sense of friendship between everyone, but even like that extends to like undergrad. I know that so many like pre-meds get in their head about their competition, their classmates, but like if you focus on you and your passions, like that comes across very differently than anyone else. So listen to Ilinca. Ilinca gives me advice all the time. Listen to her.
I try.
Okay, well, if you could give our viewers some advice, they want to know how you deal with uncertainties or a lack of motivation.
I read this question before and I still like have a hard time answering it. I think I got less uncertain the older I got. So I think part of becoming just like more confident in yourself is just being around longer, if that makes sense, which is not something that anyone can control. So, but I was just as uncertain and in my undergrad, which is I think is why I kind of took this like moseying path to medical school. So I don't really have a good answer for this, except surround yourself with people that support you and want what's best for you and will motivate you even when you don't want to, I guess. Like pursue what you really want, or that will remind you why you're doing something, if that makes sense. Because there was a lot of times where I was just like, even in my master's, I'd be like, I don't even know if I want to finish this. Like, should I just like drop out now? And I just had a few really good friends that were like, no, you're going to regret it. You're not the kind of person that like, stops something halfway through. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they just knew who I was inherently as a person. And they were like, you need to see it through. So and then even when I was applying to medical school, just like having people in your corner that like will encourage you to keep going, I think is a good motivator. So just, it all comes down to support system, I guess. I could talk about like doing extracurriculars and, having a life outside of school. That's important too. But I think it all comes down to just like a support system and just slowly building that confidence over time. And that's just like an experience thing. You just, my big thing is just always hunt for experiences. That is what life is to me. It's just a series of different experiences. And even if it's like a bad experience, just know that you're going to take something from it. And maybe that will help people kind of, there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. And nothing's ever the same for long. Life is like a sine wave. There's ups, there's downs, but they eventually end.
Dang, that was deep.
This
I want
is
to give
really,
like
oh,
No,
so
feeling so
inspirational.
bad.
This is hitting me in the feels.
I love that.
I want to like give a standing ovation right now, but like
No, can you
can't really.
like can you clap on Zoom and like people can see it? I'm
my God,
sending
yeah,
there
yeah,
you go.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
see my
Wait,
little
wait,
clap.
One of those, yeah.
No,
There, I
like
have
literally I'm gonna save this on my phone and like
Listen to
okay,
it.
Ilinca.
Listen
we
to
have
it
a
every night
program at-
before you go to sleep. Just like have it.
No,
play.
yeah, so I'm going to. We have a program at school that's like big sib, little sib, and like Ilinca's my big sib. So I go to her with a lot of my problems to begin with. But like just I feel like so many people need to hear that. And we need to like put that as a highlight on the story. Be like, listen to this when you want to reduce stress.
Seriously,
That was-
that's a lot of what interviewing is like being able to look back, take like the difficult, bad situations in your life and explain them. Because no one actually wants to hear about the great things you did. Like another hot take. They don't want to, not a lot of people, like accomplishments aren't as interesting in retrospect as like someone, you know, overcoming hurdles or, you know, getting to the top of that mountain, as they say. Like those are the interesting stuff. That's the stuff they make movies and write books about. And to be honest, those are the stuff that people like want to hear in interviews. So, I know that, you know, everyone comes from different walks of life, but just like use that and, you know.
I'm not even gonna lie,
Yeah.
the climb just started playing in my head.
Yeah, that should be going on while I
Yeah.
ramble.
It's the climb. Damn. Wow.
That was deep. That was deep.
That
Thank
was
you.
deep.
Thank you for sharing that.
I have no words now.
I feel like I had something else, but I forget what it would have been.
You know, I
no,
think-
I do know. I know. Can I say it?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Don't be afraid of like pursuing something else. I feel like in undergrad, especially if you're going for medicine, don't have your blinders on and be like, that's the only thing I want to do. Because you will find that if you just kind of let yourself be open to experiences, you might find something else you like equally as much. This is the advice I give to people that are applying for jobs too, outside of like right after undergrad. It's like, you may not be using your degree now, but as long as it's a job that you see that you could do well and that you might get something from, that you might even like a bit, like it's worth doing that, even if it's for a few years, and see how you like it. Like, don't just have like just one thing set and be like, if I don't do this, then my life will be over. Like, I'll never be happy. Like, that's not, that will only stress you out more, I think. And then you'll just feel like you're constantly failing if you don't achieve that. But I think if you just have like, give yourself a bit of wiggle room and be like, you know what, like on the way to medicine, maybe I'm trying this thing and this thing, then I think that's like, it takes a bit of the pressure off, because you'll be like, I'm still working towards that goal, but I'm doing something else right now and I like it, you know, maybe even just as much as I would like medicine. So I think just don't have the blinds on, or like the blinders, whatever they say. That's my other, yeah.
Life
Advice.
lessons from Ilinca. We'll make it a highlight.
I love giving life advice. I'm
No,
bad at
you
taking
should.
it,
I love
but
hearing
like
life
giving it.
advice, so this is great.
Yeah.
It's like a therapy session right now.
This is gonna be what I come back to every time I have my lows when I'm freaking out about school. So I think with that, we already kind of answered the next question, which is what kept you going / motivated for so long after your undergrad. And as we talked about, you didn't apply to medicine until much later. So I think we covered that with having, I think that goes with the last question we just asked as well.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
in between cycles, I know I didn't do it, but I know a few friends that have, just try to like build on those experiences, as I said. So try not to let there be like periods of time where you're like stagnating. I think not like because you want to build the CV, but essentially that is what you're doing. But just like get new experiences, try to find things that will kind of help you kind of better express why you want to do medicine in the future, is the only thing I'll say. So like, you know, use that time meaningfully between applications.
Great. And I know you've already mentioned it a couple of times, but do you want to tell us a bit about your chosen specialty that you're pursuing and what brought you to that decision?
Okay. So even though Advait hates this specialty,
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Despite
It's
of
just
Advait
like,
hatred, she's still gonna go for
it's
it.
just
but right now it may change because I'm in clerkship, and in clerkship we have to experience every specialty almost. So it may change, but right now I went into medical school wanting to do obstetrics and gynecology, and that's still what I want to do. I haven't fully fleshed out why, but I just like the specialty in terms of the patient population. There, sorry, you might have to cut this part out. Hi, Julia. So I just like the patient population. They're a lot of, it's a lot younger. They don't have as many comorbidities, which I mean, some people like about medicine. They like fixing people with a lot of problems. I like to focus on like individual problems. There's like a high acuity in obstetrics and gynecology, because if a mom or a baby is crashing, like you gotta act quickly. There's like a surgical and a clinical component to it. So there are times where I'll be in the hospital doing surgery, and then there's other times where I can just be in clinic, and it's just a different feel. I can talk to patients more, spend more time with them. So I like the balance. And then I really just want to be an advocate for women's health. I just think for me, I think I learned about like sexual health and just women's health just kind of like through friends and just through kind of like osmosis from the world around me. But I would have loved to have someone that could kind of like guide me through that a bit more. And I did work when I was at Queen's. I worked for the Sexual Health Resource Center, and had a lot of fun volunteering with that. So that kind of like influenced me towards obstetrics and gynecology as well. Yeah.
all right. That's pretty admirable. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Advait's like, okay, maybe I don't hate it anymore.
Maybe I don't hate it.
I think we have one last serious question for you.
Okay.
Just to wrap things up, and that is, would you do anything different on your path to medical school? If you could change your path at all, would you?
Yes. I probably would have done a course-based master's instead of a science master's, but that's just based on my experience and just what I figured out I liked. I did biochemistry as an undergrad, and I probably would have been better off doing like a life sci or even a nursing degree. The older I get, I just like really practical things. So I just think, do what you love, but I think there's something to be said for pursuing something that like will give you like tangible skills that you can take forward. So I guess maybe just like tweaking things. But, I can't say for sure because I am where I am today because of everything that happened to me. But if I had to advise someone else, maybe just like tweaking, set yourself up for the best possible outcome would be my only thing. And then do some sort of retail or some sort of job where you have to like interact with like a whole bunch of people from all walks of life.
Barista.
For like 9 hours a day, every day, like in a shift work. I think that builds a lot of character, and it'll show you like how much patience you actually have, which is an important quality for a doctor.
Yeah.
And it can be really fun, and it'll show you if you're a people person or not. So yeah. And then take a break from the science sometimes.
So I have one more question. Don't worry, it's nothing too crazy. But it's just because you wrote your MCAT a few years out of undergrad. So I was wondering, what did you have any difficult studying for that, or when did you write your MCAT? If you want to talk about that a bit.
Oh yeah, yes, I do want to talk about that because I feel like I have a controversial take on that as well. So I listened to your podcast about the MCAT, and so I kind of did something similar to Hailey. I studied for like a good 6 months, but that was because I was also working at the time. But I am a big proponent of like, take as much time as you need to study for it. I could never have done it just by studying in the summer. I would have got too distracted by the nice weather, and it would have just, it would have been too short a time period. Like, I'm the kind of person that just like likes to absorb information over a long period of time. So I am a big fan of just extending your study period, but that's just what works for me. And then because I guess I was worried that I was a little bit outside of undergrad and that like studying mentality, I did take a course. So I took the Kaplan course, and I actually really enjoyed it. So I would recommend that. So I kind of did both of those things, and then I never did a full test.
What?
That is shocking.
This riles people up when I tell. So don't do this, because I've never heard anyone say this except me. But just to give you background about how I studied. So I would just do the section test and just get really good at the timing for individual section tests, because I knew that it would just be really easy not easy, but like I that's how I work. Like I see one task, I do it, it gets done. So like I knew that I could like easily shift from like cars to like physics and chemistry to biology. So like it wasn't so much about like stamina for me. It was just about like, I just needed to build the confidence that I could do that one section and that one section well. So I never wrote like a full exam before I got there. But
That's
maybe
wild.
Don't do that.
But you still did practice
shocking.
questions.
Oh yeah, I still did practice questions. Julia's looking at me. She's like, bad advice. Yeah, no, it's not great advice. I just want to like tell you what I did. But also just be aware of how long the test actually is. But I never, I never did a full exam.
That's wild.
And I would say Kaplan has a really good way of explaining cars. So if you don't want to take the whole course, I don't know if you can just take that aspect of it or just find the resources online to help you with that specific section. I would recommend those because they just explain it in a really good format that's like very helpful. I found it really helpful. It was like
I did as well. I did Kaplan as well, and I found that my car score was because of what they taught me.
Yeah. They're really good. So if you want to combine that with like whatever Princeton does for biology and chemistry, because I heard that they have very like thorough notes, that might be like a good blend for MCAT studying.
Okay, Kylie, do you want to wrap us up with some fun questions?
Of course. But just to add to what Ilinca said, like I was able to get my hands on like a few different books from different companies. And it's nice to be able to, this is also what happens when you write it for 3 years in a row, regardless, I digress. I was able to get some like free old editions, and it's nice to pick and choose like different methods from each book because no one method works for one person. So yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of stuff on the interwebs. So I have 3 questions for you. And I don't think you read any of them. The first one, we'll start with like least intense to more intense. So you said you were a barista. What was your favorite drink to make?
Oh, okay. Barista might have been the wrong word for it. I was like a waitress at like a kind of diner situation, and I made drinks, and I was truly terrible at it. So I didn't enjoy making any drinks except drip coffee.
That's a valid answer.
This entire time I was just picturing you working at Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, same.
No. You don't want me at Starbucks. The steamed milk would go everywhere. I'd probably burn it. No, you don't want me at Starbucks. So scratch that. Anytime I said barista, actually like put waitress or something in there.
I'll just put a voiceover for myself being like waitress.
Waitress.
But yeah, no.
Note to
drip
self,
coffee
if you
is where it's
see
at.
if you see Ilinca with a milk frother, get away.
Run.
That's what we've learned from that question. Okay, next
second
one.
question.
What part of the human face is your favorite?
Oh, this is so hard. I mean, I really like people's smiles, but a smile out of context is really creepy. Like if you're just telling me to look at like mouths, that's like really creepy. Like if it's just like a Cheshire cat kind of situation. Just a smile. But as far as my favorite part of people like faces, it's usually like their smile. I love when people have just like a full smile. The lip smile kind of creeps me out sometimes.
Like them.
Yeah, like I just never feel
Even
like
like
people are genuine when they do that. So I just take that as a mark of like you were genuinely like happy or genuinely like, I don't know, you're just like being yourself in that moment because you're not worried about like what people will think of you, I guess.
I like how seriously
like
you
that.
took this question. I would have just
Well,
answered like I actually just
Like,
would have
your
answered
cheek.
like, oh yeah, like I
It
don't
would
know.
have been like noses.
Yeah, I love my noses. Gotta breathe from
Next
those.
question, please.
Oh my god, noses would probably be the worst part of the
That'd be
face.
pretty creepy.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty creepy.
I think the
But there's so
variety
many parts
of
of the
noses
face I like.
that people have is cool. There's just such a wide variety of noses in this world.
That's true.
You
Okay,
know,
third
the eyes.
question.
I was just gonna say
Oh,
the eyes
sorry.
are really cool, but there's a lot of cranial nerves there, so I don't really like that. Anyways,
Yeah, dimples are cute. High cheekbones. Love it.
eyebrows.
Eyebrows.
We love good
Anyways.
eyebrows.
You would see only the eyebrows,
love a
though,
good-
nothing else.
Really good facial hair. Like all these things are just, there's so much to a face.
Dang, this girl's literally just describing me.
Yeah, Advait, I'm just.
Ilinca's actually in love with Advait.
You do have a nice smile. You do
Hey,
have a
thank
nice
you, thank
smile,
you.
I
I mean,
will
that was
say.
so
And nice
awesome.
eyebrows.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, eyebrows are another. Yeah.
last
Okay,
question.
third
This
question.
one's like more. This one's more intense. It can go either way. If you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Oh, so this is similar to a question that I love to ask other people, which is what you would do a TED Talk about. It's like my
Oh,
favorite
that is a good
icebreaker
question.
at like a
That's a
bar.
great question.
What I would talk about is how hard it is to go against the grain. I think nowadays, just to take politics for an example, like it's really easy to just have like two camps. But you know, what everyone thinks is like super nuanced, and you might agree with one thing and not the other and just be lumped into that category. And I think it's just really hard these days to just be in the middle, and to not just adamantly go towards one side, especially on even just like on undergrad campus, like university campuses, for instance. There's always just like this like one way that you're taught to think, or like that everyone expects you to think. And I think it's really hard to be like, take a step back and be like, either I don't think that way and here's why, or like analyze, like, do I think that way because of my environment? Just, you know, just kind of be honest of why you like believe in certain things, and just, you know, just be more considerate of other people and how hard that actually is to be able to like have two conflicting opinions in your mind at the same time and be able to understand why people might have those opinions. So that's what I would tell the world, but it would probably take
like
longer
that.
than 30 seconds.
Groupthink or hive mind? I like that. That's a good one.
No, that's a
Yeah.
good one. yeah.
And I feel like you do play a very good devil's advocate as well, which is important. So you can
Yeah.
consider everyone's views.
Yeah, I mean, people find that annoying sometimes, but I do that because I always like to challenge the way people think, just because sometimes fun things might come out of it too. Good conversation.
That was straight up the feedback I got from one of our small group sessions. She said like you play devil's advocate a little bit too much. Yeah, and I was like, oh, it's just fun.
Imagine us two in a room at the
we would just be
constantly
play
flipping
it, yeah.
sides. Constantly flipping sides.
When we can be in person again, we'll have to have Advait and Ilinca come back for another podcast episode and just have them debate.
Yeah.
every
Oh, no, she would
issue.
beat me. She would beat me in a
debate
debate.
round.
This girl was about to write her LSAT. You're gonna tell me I'm gonna no. She would make me cry probably eventually by the end.
I might. Let's do it.
Also, yeah, just a side note, the LSAT looks like a much more fun exam to write than the MCAT.
Really?
Shorter, that's for sure.
But yeah. That's,
Okay.
That's all my views in a
I think
nutshell.
that's it. Maybe we'll start a new segment called Hot Takes with Ilinca, and you can bring us new.
I love that.
every week.
I
That
can
would
like call in just
that would
like
be
for
fun.
like a few minutes every episode.
Yes. So yeah, but I think that's it for this episode, guys. That's episode 16 of Tachy Talks, talking with our classmate Ilinca about all sorts of things. Thanks for tuning in another week, and we'll see you in another 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Woohoo! Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for having me on, guys.